Hey, good day, folks. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. I know I can't complain. I welcome you to Gardendale, Alabama, which is located in Jefferson County. It is located 16 minutes north of Birmingham. The population here is 15,920 people, and the population has grown by 2.8% as of the 2020 census. Now, your violent crime is going to be 26% above national average, and your property crime is going to be 65% above national average. Now, I've heard through different sources that certain areas in the state of Alabama does not necessarily report all their crimes as they should report their crimes. So when I read off these numbers, I'm just reading off of the data that's available to me when I do my research to make these videos. Now, in some of these places that might appear to have low crime, that piece of information may not always be accurate. Like, for an example, that video I made about York, Alabama, I believe that was maybe a couple of months, give or take. Now, they stated that the crime in York was low, but as I've told you on that video, I basically said in many words that I did not believe the data that was available for York, Alabama when it came to the crime. Now, we're going to take a drive through Gardendale, and you guys can kind of make your own assumption, I guess. I mean, granted, this is a video, so you're not going to know everything there is to know through just simply watching a 40-some minute video. And this is the reason why I tell you folks that before you move anywhere, I don't care if it's small town, big town, suburban, major city, I don't give a damn where it's at. It's always a good idea to set foot on that soil, talk to a few of the locals, drive around yourself, like whatever community that you think you want to live in, drive around that area and just check it out for yourself. Because sometimes the crime data might be accurate and sometimes it's not so accurate. Like, a lot of times if it states that the area is low in crime, you talk to some of the locals, you'll find that those pieces of data are very often the crime in reality is much higher. And there's also cases where you might have entire cities that are written off as crime-infested shitholes. But then when you talk to some of the locals in those communities, they'll tell you, okay, well, if you go here, if you go over there, yes, that may be true. But if you go over here and you go over there, you'll be all right. So if you want to live here in Gardendale, the median home price is sitting at $244,000. However, you're not going to find anything for lower than $250,000 at this particular moment. Now, maybe if you wait for a few months or you wait for a year, I mean, there's been a lot of talk out there about the housing market possibly changing and prices coming down due to increased interest rates, and there's a bunch of other nonsense going on right now in the housing market. So for those of you that are looking to purchase, obviously, if that were to change, provided that you still have your employment, that would be a good thing. But anyhow, at this point, you want to live here in Gardendale, you better have at least $250,000 to drop on a house here. Now, if you're looking to pay median rent prices are going to go from $890 to $1,530 a month. Man, that's a lot of money. Man, whoa. I mean, and as I read those type of numbers off as I do these videos, it almost takes the breath out of my lungs. I mean, I know for many of you, you're looking at those numbers and you're like, man, what's the big deal? I live in New York and I pay triple that price. I live in Florida and I pay double that price. Well, you know what? As you guys know, for those of you that have been watching me for a while, I grew up in the Midwest. I'm from Elyria, Ohio, which is a half hour outside of Cleveland. I lived many years in Indiana. So like I said, I'm from the Midwest. I'm from a region of the country where rent prices up until recently had never been that high. Unless, of course, you were wanting to live somewhere in the burbs. So let's keep moving. The racial demographics here are going to be 83.6% white, 11.7% black, 2.1% Asian, 1.9% Hispanic. And the housing market here is rather competitive. I'm going to throw that in there too, because it is. You're going to have a hard time finding anything here right now. So like I said, the cheapest that's available is $250,000. At least right now. Now, when I get done with this video and it's uploaded, the cheapest house available might go up to $350,000. Who the hell knows? So, on to some general information about Gardendale. Gardendale was a large farm settlement that was settled in the mid-1820s. That was known as Jugtown, based on the presence of a large jug and churn factory in the area at the time. The name Gardendale was selected in 1906 due to a school teacher by the name of Hetty Thompson Cargo, who led a campaign to change the city's name due to being embarrassed about being from Jugtown. So Gardendale was finally incorporated in 1955. So this city is not that old. The Olympic torch ran through the city in 1996. And each year this city does hold a Magnolia Festival. It is held here during the springtime of every year. And this city is also the home of professional athletes. So a lot of people over the years have done big things in this community. They've done big things and moved on. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's some of these people that are still here in this community as I speak. They're probably in some of these super expensive communities nestled in somewhere in some gated community where I don't know where the hell that's at. So, yeah. If you're wanting to move here in Gardendale, now, to me, Gardendale does seem like a decent place to consider home. Obviously, if you got the money, and if you're looking to live within the greater Birmingham area. And and now granted, $250,000 is that's expensive for Alabama standards. But honestly, I can't think of any suburb, even up in Indiana or Ohio, that you would be able to move to for $250,000. I know for a fact in Indiana, the median home prices of those suburbs are going to be $300,000 and even $400,000. So the fact that you can live here in Alabama and you can live in some of these suburbs for lower than $300,000 is pretty good. Now, of course, let's address the big elephant in the room here. I'm not knocking Birmingham, but let's just keep it real. When you compare Birmingham to, let's say, Fort Wayne, Fort Wayne hands down is a far better city than Birmingham. Not only is it safer, but the infrastructure up there is a lot better, and just all in all, Fort Wayne has a lot more going for itself at this particular point than Birmingham. The only knock that I would give Fort Wayne compared to Birmingham is Birmingham being here in Alabama, you do get much better weather if you're into living somewhere that's warmer and you're not really and you don't really want to have to deal with a bunch of snow and ice and sub-freezing temperatures all the time during the winter. If you're into living somewhere where your winters are short-lived, like maybe a couple of months, as where if you go to Indiana, especially northern Indiana, where Fort Wayne is located, renters up there, I would say you're looking at up there you're looking at a good 5 months out the year to where the weather is going to be colder. And I would say for 3 to 4 out of that time, you can expect it to snow. Now, granted, up there, it's not going to be Minnesota. It's not going to be North Dakota. It's not going to be Wisconsin. But the point I'm making is the only knock I give against Fort Wayne versus Birmingham is the climate. Other than that, if Fort Wayne was down here in Alabama, I would pick Fort Wayne over Birmingham, hands down. I'm just going to keep it real. So for those of you that haven't watched any of my Indiana videos, I invite you to go and watch some of those videos. Go ahead, type in Fort Wayne. I got several videos of Fort Wayne. In my humble opinion, Fort Wayne is a wonderful place to live. If you can deal with some cold and dreary winters, or maybe if you have your life set up to where maybe a few months out the year you can disappear and go somewhere warmer like Florida, Arizona, then I would say Fort Wayne would be a good place for you to live. Now, granted, the cost of living in Fort Wayne is going to be a little more expensive compared to Birmingham. Now, as far as it goes for the suburbs, since this is a suburb that we're driving through right now, when you compare a suburb like this to many of the suburbs in, let's say, mid-Indiana, like Hamilton County, like the suburbs in Hamilton County, for an example, and even some of the suburbs on the southern end of Indianapolis, like like Canby and Plainfield, places like that. I will say that the suburbs here in Alabama are decent. I will say that many of the suburbs here in Alabama are comparable to many of the suburbs of Indiana. I will say that. But when it comes to the actual city proper, like Birmingham versus Fort Wayne, or Birmingham versus Indianapolis. Now, granted, Indianapolis does have an issue with crime, but even when you compare Indianapolis to Birmingham, the crime issues in Birmingham are worse than Indianapolis. Now, if you guys go back and you watch some of my Indianapolis videos, which the latest Indianapolis video I made was, I want to say I made that video back in February, early March, somewhere off around that time. So if you go back and you watch my Indianapolis video, I mean, Indianapolis does have several trouble spots. In fact, I even advise people on that video that if you're going to move to Indianapolis, your best bet would be to move somewhere more like on the outskirts of the city. And I also mentioned certain parts of Indianapolis to live. Now, despite all the issues that Indianapolis is going through right now in relation to crime, despite all the parts of Indianapolis that, in my opinion, are ran down and crime infested, again, you give me a choice between Birmingham, Alabama, and Indianapolis, I'll pick Indianapolis. Because again, Indianapolis has a lot more going for itself than Birmingham. So that's the reason why the cost of living down here in many of your Alabama metros, to include your nearby suburbs, are going to be cheaper compared to even places like Indiana, which Indiana is definitely not the most expensive place to live, by no means, as many of you may already realize. And when it comes to Ohio, and I bring up Ohio because I grew up in Ohio, I'm gonna be honest. Now, although I'm not the biggest fan of Ohio, I will say, if I had to make a choice between living in a major city in Ohio versus a major city here in Alabama, I would almost pick a major city in Ohio. Now, when I look at the crime here in Birmingham, I would say the crime here in Birmingham is worse than even Cleveland, Ohio. So if I had to, now let's not get it twisted. I wouldn't want to live in either city because I'm just, I'm not talking down about Cleveland, but Cleveland is just not my cup of tea. If I had to live in a major city in Ohio, my first choice would be Columbus. And then following that, I would probably check out Cincinnati. But honestly, I probably would live almost anywhere. I mean, any major city that's in Ohio, I would probably pick that over Birmingham, Alabama. And for those of you that have been watching my channel for a while, I made several videos about Toledo, and I've talked about Toledo several times in a negative light because I can't stand that city. However, you give me a choice between living in Birmingham or living in Toledo, I'll pick Toledo over Birmingham. And I hate to say that because Birmingham has a wonderful downtown. I mean, let's not get it twisted. Downtown Birmingham is wonderful. Unfortunately, the rest of the city hasn't caught up with downtown. So I guess that, I mean, obviously this done turned into a little rant about why housing prices down here, I guess, are so much lower than many other parts of the country, even to include Indiana and Ohio. So if you made it this far, I appreciate you, and I'm gonna let you guys watch the remainder of this video. Enjoy the ride. Y'all know what to do by now. So until the next time, y'all have a blessed one. See you on the next one.